There is a man you have never heard of who decided what you eat for breakfast. He decided that women should smoke cigarettes. He decided that a foreign government should be overthrown. He decided how you think about hygiene, about bacon, about public relations, about the word propaganda itself. He did all of this not through force, not through law, not through anything you were ever asked to consent to. He did it through the precise, systematic manipulation of the way human beings form beliefs. His name was Edward Bernays. He died in 1995 at the age of 103. Almost nobody knows who he is. That is not an accident. Edward Bernays was the nephew of Sigmund Freud. He read his uncle's work on the unconscious mind and asked a question that Freud never asked. Not how do we understand the unconscious, but how do we use it? In 1928, he published a book called Propaganda. Its opening line reads, "The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society." He was not writing a warning. He was writing a manual, and he had already spent a decade testing everything in it. In 1929, the American Tobacco Company hired Bernays to solve a problem. Women were not smoking in public. Social convention made it unacceptable. Smoking was a male behavior, and women who did it in public were considered indecent. This was not a moral problem for the American Tobacco Company. It was a market-size problem. Half the potential customers were not buying. Bernays did not advertise cigarettes to women. He did not argue that smoking was acceptable. He hired a group of women to march in the 1929 New York Easter Parade, one of the most publicly visible events in America, smoking cigarettes. He told the press in advance that the women would be lighting their torches of freedom. He had consulted a psychoanalyst who told him that cigarettes represented, symbolically, male power. He reframed smoking not as a habit, but as an act of feminist liberation. The story ran in newspapers across the country. Women's smoking rates began to climb. He had not changed the product. He had not argued for the product. He had changed what the product meant. And meaning, Bernays understood, is more powerful than argument. You cannot argue someone out of a meaning they have emotionally adopted, but you can install a new meaning before they know it is happening. Bernays had 3 insights that nobody before him had fully operationalized. The first, people do not make decisions based on facts. They make decisions based on feelings, and then construct facts to justify the feelings afterward. This was Freud's insight applied to markets and politics, rather than individual psychology. If you want to change what someone does, do not change their information. Change their emotional association with the behavior. The second insight, people do not trust institutions. They trust people they perceive as independent authorities. Bernays invented the technique, now called third-party authority placement. Instead of a company saying its product was good, Bernays arranged for doctors, scientists, and cultural figures to say it, apparently independently, without visible connection to the company paying for the message. In 1930, he was hired by Beechnut Packing Company to increase bacon sales. He did not advertise bacon. He surveyed 5,000 physicians and asked them whether a hearty breakfast or a light breakfast was better for human health. The majority said hearty. He published the survey results with the recommendation that a hearty breakfast should include bacon and eggs. The story ran as health news, not advertising. Within years, bacon and eggs had become the default American breakfast. The physicians were not lying. They were simply being used. Their authority was the delivery mechanism for a commercial message they did not know they were delivering. The third insight, the most important and the most dangerous, was this: democracy does not protect against manipulation. It enables it. A population that believes it is making free choices is a population that will not look for the hand moving it. The most effective control is the control that feels like freedom. Bernays called this the engineering of consent. He defined it as the use of an appeal to reason and self-interest, combined with the forces of group dynamics to bring about voluntary acceptance of predetermined goals. Voluntary acceptance. The target chooses, they just don't choose the menu. In 1954, the United Fruit Company had a problem. The democratically elected president of Guatemala, Jacobo Arbenz, had announced a land reform program that would redistribute unused land, including land owned by United Fruit, to Guatemalan peasants. United Fruit stood to lose significant holdings. They hired Edward Bernays. Bernays did not lobby politicians. He did not bribe officials. He ran a media campaign. He invited American journalists to Guatemala on paid trips, framed as independent press tours, and ensured they encountered the specific evidence he wanted them to find. He planted stories in American newspapers describing Arbenz as a communist threat to the Western Hemisphere. He organized a steady stream of briefings, reports, and apparently independent commentary, all coordinated, none visibly connected to United Fruit. That built, across 18 months, a public narrative of communist infiltration in Guatemala. The American public, consuming this narrative through trusted news sources, concluded that intervention was necessary. The CIA, with public opinion now supporting action, launched a covert operation that overthrew the Arbenz government in June 1954. Arbenz fled the country. United Fruit retained its land. Bernays had started with a fruit company's profit margin. He ended with a government destroyed, a country destabilized for decades, and a population that believed they had witnessed a necessary defense of democracy. Not a single gun was fired by Bernays. Not a single law was broken by Bernays. He had simply changed what people believed was true, and belief he had spent his entire career proving is more powerful than any weapon. Here is where this stops being history. Edward Bernays died in 1995. His techniques did not die with him. They became the operating system of the modern world. Every public relations firm in existence uses the third-party authority model he invented. Every political campaign uses the emotional association technique he documented in 1928. Every major consumer brand uses the meaning installation approach he tested on cigarettes and bacon. The Instagram post from the doctor who happens to recommend a supplement. The news story that happens to frame a policy in terms of the threat it addresses. The wellness influencer who happens to embody the lifestyle the product promises. The think tank that happens to publish research supporting the industry that funds it. None of these are new. All of them are Bernays, running on updated hardware, pointed at you. Right now. Today. Bernays gave the technique a name that was later considered too honest and replaced with softer language. He called it propaganda. The word was retired after the Second World War because it had become associated with the regimes that used it most visibly. It was replaced with public relations, marketing, communications, messaging, narrative. Different words, identical mechanism. Here is the framework for recognizing it anywhere it appears. Ask 4 questions about any message you receive. 1. Who paid for this message to reach me? Not who delivered it, who paid for its delivery. The physician, the journalist, the influencer, the think tank, these are often not the origin. They are the channel. Find the origin. 2. What behavior does this message make more likely? Not what does it argue for, what does it make you feel inclined to do? Purchase, vote, fear, trust, dismiss, comply. The behavior is the product. The message is the production line. 3. What meaning is being installed rather than argued? Cigarettes as freedom, bacon as health, intervention as democracy, consumption as identity. Arguments can be counter-argued. Installed meanings cannot be argued against because the target doesn't know they have been installed. They feel like the target's own conclusions. 4. Who benefits from you believing this? Not who says they benefit you. Who actually benefits? Follow the money, the power, or the compliance. One of those 3 will always be at the end of the chain. Here is the final thing. The thing Bernays knew and wrote down and left for anyone to read. He was not ashamed of what he did. He believed it was necessary. He believed that the masses, ordinary people, people like you, people like the ones reading his newspaper stories about Guatemalan communists and bacon and torches of freedom, could not be trusted to make decisions that served the social good without guidance. He believed that a small group of intelligent people had both the right and the responsibility to manage public opinion for the benefit of society. He wrote this down in 1928 in a book called Propaganda, which is still in print, which you can buy today, which contains in clear and readable prose the complete operational manual for the manipulation of your beliefs, your desires, and your choices. He hid nothing. He assumed you wouldn't read it. He was right about almost everyone. The question this video is leaving you with is simple. Now that you have read it, or at least heard it, what are you going to do differently? Because knowing the machine exists is not the same as stepping outside it. The machine is the environment. It is the air you breathe, and the news you read, and the breakfast you eat, and the fears you carry. Bernays built it so well that the question is no longer whether you are inside it. The question is whether you are aware that you are. You are now